Hello, everyone, and welcome along to Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's the tennis podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. Coming at you at a very strange time, as like the ATP Tour show with myself and Mr. Sean Calvert. Rori Jiwani joins me here to look ahead to the WTA China Open. It's the 1000 event, but obviously it's a strange start. So this is why we are coming to you as we are now. The tournament did start in the early hours of Saturday, so we haven't got any outright prices, but I'm delighted to say Rori Jiwani is joining me from Madrid to look at some of the matches tomorrow and give his leans and give his sort of predictions and the sort of court speeds and breakdowns and where he thinks the value lies on the draw. First of all, good morning, Rory. Long time no speak. How are you, sir? We haven't spoken since the US Open.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, it's been a funny old time in tennis with a couple of odd tournaments. We had a WT 1000 in name only in Guadalajara. I mean, all the top players were missing. Maria Sakkari won it, but we're moving on to the next WTA 1000 in China. Tour returning to China after an absence of 4 years, and pretty much all the top players are here. So this should be a cracking tournament. I think only Karolina Muchova is missing. But we've had some interesting tournaments of late. We've had Tokyo this week, and I can see that, obviously Iga Swiatek went out in the quarterfinals to Veronika Kudermetova, and Kudermetova's just beaten Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova to reach the final. And Jessica Pegula's looks like she's about to beat Sakkari in the second semi. And I have to say, I mean, I was very keen to oppose Swiatek this week just because Tokyo, traditionally one of the fastest, last year, one of the fastest courts on the tour. And we know that Swiatek isn't as effective on fast courts, on fast hard courts. And I actually thought I fancied Ekaterina Alexandrova or Lyudmila Samsonova to beat Swiatek at some point. They didn't meet her, and Kudermetova, who has a horrible head-to-head against Swiatek, she caused an upset in the quarterfinals. I think she was plus 700 to win that match, but she beat the Pole, who of course is no longer world number one. She's down to 2 with Aryna Sabalenka number 1. But Pegula on fast courts is very useful, and she was in the very weak bottom half. I mean, it was a really lopsided draw. So Pegula always looked likely to come through the bottom half. She's just got to close out now against Sakkari. But Beijing, pretty similar. I mean, obviously, we haven't been here for a few years. The last winner was Naomi Osaka in 2019, and she beat Ashley Barty in the final. So that tells you how much tennis has changed in the intervening period.
Well, looking at the draw, Rory, only 2 previous winners are in this draw.
Yes.
Azarenka and Caroline Garcia, they're only 2 previous winners in the winter. It shows you how the landscape of women's tennis has changed massively, and that's since the COVID period.
Yeah, and there's also been an interesting development from the WTA in that players who go deep the previous week now get performance buys. So it used to be the top ranked players got buys, and I think they still will in some tournaments. But in this tournament in Beijing, for instance, the players who reach the semi-finals in Tokyo, they've got buys through the first round.
I like that idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea because of the attritional nature of the tour. I think it gives players a little bit extra recovery time. Jelena Rybakina is one of those who is far from impressed, and she had a few choice words about the WTA, but maybe that's because she's been struggling. It's almost a case of she would say that, wouldn't she? Because she hasn't gone deep in a tournament for a long time. And she obviously got a high world ranking, but she needs to go deep in a tournament to get these performance buys. But I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, I do. And the 4 players obviously have got to buy through to the last 32. It's a 64 woman draw here in the WTA 1000 event in Beijing. It's our last 1000 event of the season. And so it's the biggest tournament remaining on the card. And then we've got the WTA Tour Championships, which is in Cancun. I'm trying to have a word with Bet Rivers to see if I can. They might need me to pop over to Cancun just to work.
Maybe,
just maybe. See what I can do. And Roy, I don't know if you fancy joining me. I see you've moved to a new flat there. The backdrop looks very different.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the next time you do this recording, make sure you take those boxer shorts off the back of that pillow over there.
Very easy. I did check. I did
check. Anyway, the draw, you've got Pavlyuchenkova, Pegula, Sakkari, and Kudermetova through to the last 32. Looking at the draw, Rory, I mean, Sabalenka, as you say, is the new world number one. She's the number one seed, the top half of the draw. The bottom half of the draw has got Iga Swiatek, and she's got the US Open champion Corey Goff in that section as well. Looking through it, you would probably say that there isn't really much advantage between the top and the bottom, but I suppose the form players are more in the bottom half of the draw compared to the top half of the draw. But really, it's a very level draw, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got 16 seeds, so 4 in each quarter. The top quarter, you've got Sabalenka, Jelena Rybakina, Barbara Krejcikova, and Beatrice Haddad-Maia. Quarter 2, you've got Pegula Ons Jabeur, who I think is just about to win in Ningbo, or she might have already done so. Yeah, she's just about to win the 250 in Ningbo. So who is that? I've got, Jabeur, Kvitova's in that second quarter, and Yelena Ostapenko. The third quarter, Maria Sakkari, Veronika Kudermetova, Daria Kasatkina, and Coco Gauff, as you say, the US Open champion. And in quarter 4, you've got Swiatek, Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova, Caroline Garcia, and Victoria Azarenka. It's pretty even. It is pretty even, but I think the thing I want to focus on is court speed, and I want to sort of go back a bit to earlier in the season. So obviously Coco Gauff had this great run. She won in Cincinnati her first WTA 1000. She won the US Open. It's very interesting to see that both of those tournaments played a good deal slower than they did last year, almost as if they were to favour Gauff, which we kind of suspected, but the stats almost bear that out. So in Cincinnati, first serve win percentage was 64 compared to 66.1 last year. Service hold percentage was way down, 62.7 against 68.3. And US Open, first serve win percentage, 63.3 against 65.6. And again, service hold percentage down from 68.6 to 65.6. Now, she's not going to get that assistance here. Tokyo was quick. From what I've seen and the stats, the ace count's reasonably high. These are going to be quicker. So the two players I want to be against for this tournament are Gauff and Swiatek. Swiatek proved last week, which we already knew, that she's not as effective on fast courts. I think we're going to see the same with Gauff as well. And so those are two players I want to be against. And I mean, the outright market, Swiatek's plus 250 favourite at the moment. I mean, obviously the markets are suspended because the action's already underway. Coco Gauff at plus 500 is a horrible price because, you know, it doesn't make sense that she's shorter than Jessica Pegula, who's plus 850, because faster courts, Pegula's very effective. Gauff just isn't. So, I mean, I do have a lean outright. And as you say, the draw is very even. I can't really pick one between the top and the bottom. I mean, maybe the fourth quarter does look slightly weak. Swiatek, Vondrousova, Garcia, and Azarenka doesn't look the strongest. But I'm actually going to go for someone in the top quarter, and that's Barbara Krejcikova. She's one who you've almost got to catch right. So she won in Dubai. She had that didn't have a great start to the season. Won in Dubai, where she beat all top 3 players. I think it was Pegula, and then she beat Sabalenka, and then she beat Swiatek in the final to win Dubai. Her form really tailed off, and she had a dismal summer. Went out early in the US Open. I think she retired hurt in the US Open. But then she had a couple of poor tournaments, and then she won San Diego. And she's a player who does well at this time of year. Last year, she won 2 indoor tournaments in a row in Tallinn, where she beat Annette Kontaveit, who was the queen of indoor courts. And then she won in Ostrava, which are quick conditions. So I think the combination of quick conditions and this time of year, and you've got a lot of players who are, you know, frankly, don't really want to be there. It's that time of the year.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I think that's a very important factor. I mean, you've spoken about the court speed. We spoke in depth. It's week number 2 on the Asian swing on the men's side of the draw. And Sean Calvert's actually got a very good read in the tournament this last couple of weeks about the players that haven't really been up for it and the challenging long years and not really bothered about it. And it is that time of season. I mean, it's the first time back in Asia since 2019. There is a huge language barrier between, obviously, the players are a little bit more sort of looked after than the normal tourists, but certain things there are very, very different. It's the first time since COVID. There is another sort of COVID outbreak happening at the moment as well. Allegedly, a lot of people are going down with COVID again. So it's a sort of time of the season where a lot of players just don't particularly want to be there. They want to be home there. And you've seen the performances from Stefanos Tsitsipas and Paula Badosa since their relationship has sort of blossomed, that they don't really want to be playing tennis. And I think that's what you've got to do here. I believe if you opposed a lot of these favourites, I don't know what the result. I haven't looked at the results this morning, but if you opposed a lot of these favourites here at heavy money, like -450s, -375s, unlike a lot of these tournaments, women's tennis is always hard to, you shouldn't be backing favourites at -375 anyway. But in a tournament like this, as we saw in the WTA 1000 event, the last one on this side, there is some shocks here. And, Krejcikova does fall into that sort of shock category, even though she's a former major champion. And I think my word of advice here, anyone betting -450s, -375s or anything like that, think again, because this tournament, I believe, will have its fair share of surprises.
Absolutely. I mean, there are some players who, will touch on the matches, and that's kind of been my angle for the matches. There's a couple of players who look like they've already checked out for the season, and they're very vulnerable here. I mean, and Krejcikova, she's almost like she's got something to prove, because when she won Dubai, I think she wanted to be talked about in the conversation with what was then the big three, Swiatek, Sabalenka and Rybakina. Obviously, things have changed since then, because Vondrousova won Wimbledon, Goff won the US Open. So it's not about that big three anymore. It's a bit more open, but she wants to be at the top table, and this could be her time to strike. And she has followed up in tournaments before. As I say, last year she won Tallinn, followed by Ostrava. When she won the French Open, she won Strasbourg the week before. So it's almost like she does win in clusters. So I think, her outright price at +3,300, definitely worth an each way wager.
So Krejcikova in the top half of the draw at 3,300. Rory also thinks that two of the market leaders are vulnerable. They're in the bottom half of the draw, which is Goff, and you have Swiatek, who thinks the court speed will affect their performance. Is there anybody else if you look at that draw, if you take Swiatek and Goff out, is there anyone that you think could capitalise on their sort of early absence, early exit, if you think they're going to go out early?
I mean, Kudermetova's obviously, she's reached the final in Tokyo this week. She beats Swiatek. I just have my suspicions. I know she'll have this performance bye, but just her following up just doesn't really appeal. I mean, she might be the one. I wouldn't be amazed to see Azarenka do something. She's had a disappointing season, and it could be that this is where it comes together. But the bottom half does look really trappy and a bit difficult. I mean, the top half looks difficult as well. It's a difficult tournament, as I say, because of all of this uncertainty about which players are going to be up for this, and end of the season. So, and it's been a long season for a lot of these players. They've played a lot of tennis, and some of them are just going to be crawling to the finish line.
Okay, let's have a look at some matches, and we start off with the match which the new American sweetheart Corey Goff. She's going to be probably the highest earning women's sports star of 2023 with the endorsements that she has with companies and winning the US Open. Now she's got to come here as a major champion. So the pressure is going to be on this young girl like she's never known before. You said the conditions are going to be a little bit questionable for her. She's a long way from home. She started up as -$4 favorite, Bet Rivers, but her opponent, Katerina Alexandrova, has been nibbled at in the market, down from $3 to +280. Goff now is -375. If you look at the props they have, there's 27 different props available on the Bet Rivers website. The spread is 4.5. Alexandrova is 4.5. That seemed very high to me. -104, and the total is 20.5. If you look at the head-to-head record between the two, the 4.5 would be a decent bet, because Alexandrova has covered that very easily. She won by 2 games in a defeat in Dubai in 2021, but she lost 2 close tie breaks, and she won a second set 6-2. And then she thrashed Goff in fast conditions in Berlin this year, 6-4, 6-love on grass. So the market here may have got carried away with Goff. I mean, it's very hard to raise your levels after you've just won a major championship. It's her first appearance since she won the US Open against Sabalenka in that final. And she's a very, very heavy favourite. And to me, she looks a vulnerable favourite against probably an opponent who's probably the best out of all the unseeded. I mean, she's ranked 20 in the world. She's a proven opponent. She's had a good year. and she's in decent form, reaching the quarterfinals in Tokyo. I think this is a real tough match for Corey Goff here.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that handicap plus 4.5 games looks absolutely huge. And I'm, as you know, I'm not normally one to play on the handicap, but I think I'm going to get stuck in here. Yeah, Alexandrova, solid season. She's just outside the top 20, but yeah, as you say, probably the most dangerous unseeded player in the draw. The speed of the courts will definitely be in her favour. And it's funny to see Goff, she's plus 500 for the tournament. I mean, as I say, that just looks really short.
It's got to be like when we're bookmakers, obviously, and especially we're working for an American sports book. They know that she is now the sweetheart of the American public, and she is also obviously such a very popular player with her personality, and the public money will bet her. They like her. They want her to do well. And I think they're just running scared. I think this is a serious question. You can't. Her true odds to win this tournament are probably $9, $10. But they can't put that up because the liability will be the same as that you would if you put her up at $5. The public will bet her.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. But for this match, she's way too short a price. I'm going to have 2 bets on this. I'm going to have a couple of points on Alexandrova on the handicap at minus 104, which I know is a little bit odds on, and I don't normally do that, but it's too good. I think plus 4.5 games is massive. And a point Alexandrova to win on the money line. That's plus 280. I think this is priced all wrong. And we know why it's priced like this, because Goff's the US Open champion. She's very popular, as you said, but different conditions. First match as a Grand Slam champion. And what's the motivation for Goff in this tournament? She's already won a slam this year. Obviously, she wants to keep that going.
Her season's
You'd
done.
think
I think
so. You could see that in a way. You could see that.
Also, the other thing as well is when sports stars win something. I've seen it so many times in the other sports. The media attention on her. She's been on every single chat show in America. She's been on every front page and every back page of every newspaper. She's had interviews. She's had fashion shoots. She's like, look at Raducanu when she won the US Open. She could. I'm not comparing Goff to Raducanu. She could have won a lot more. But the extra pressure and the need that everyone wants to be around you, the need that everyone wants to pick up the telephone to you is huge. And suddenly coming to a place like this, she's going to have a huge spotlight on her. And she's a very confident girl, and I'm sure she'll take it in stride, but I think it's going to take some time to get used to it. And I think in her first matchup against a proven opponent who's beat her before and beat her well, I couldn't agree more with you. I'll be putting the phone down. Putting the phone down. How old am I? Back in 1988. Putting this fax down. I'll be faxing my bookmaker.
Yes.
And I'll be getting a
telegram.
On my pager to make sure of it. But no, I'm going to end this call on the Zoom call, and I'm going to be heading straight to BetRivers' website to place a bet on Alexandrova here, because I think that 280 is a great price. Next match here. I mean, talking about players who question their motivation and question whether they're up for the challenge ahead. Petra Kvitova. I mean, her form since I saw her win in Miami has not been the same player. She had her win then. She won a 1,000 event. She never thought she could do it. She did it. And again, since then, her form's gone downhill. She's up against Wang, who is going to be very, very motivating in front of our home crowd here. And Petra Kvitova is a streaky player. She played in a lot of long matches, a lot of tough matches, and towards the end of the season, she's usually pretty much dead on her feet. She's the number 12 seed here, which makes her a favourite, and she's a minus 180 favourite. Wang is plus 143 here. They've never met before, but I think that if you get with the Chinese or Asian players on the Asian swing, and you bet them blind, I don't think you'll go too far wrong, because they will be motivated compared to their opponents. And that certainly looks the case for me here. I'm interested to hear your thoughts here, Rory. 2.5 is the spread. Wang is minus 104, plus 2.5. Kvitova is minus 2.5, minus 122. And the total is 21.5, which is over minus 121. I always like to play overs in Kvitova game matches, so I'd probably be leaning towards that, but also be leaning towards the Chinese player here.
Yeah, definitely. For me, on the money line, I really fancy Wang. I mean, to me, Kvitova looks like a player. She's already thinking of the beach or the slopes or wherever she chooses to go on holiday. She played the 250 in Ningbo, also in China, last week. That was her first tournament since going out to Caroline Wozniacki at the US Open. She made really heavy weather of Annalena Friedson. Then she had a walkover against Yulia Putintseva. And then she went out to Diana Schneider, the young Russian lefty. Which, that's not a match she should be losing, really. Kvitova, if she's in any sort of form, she should be beating players like Schneider pretty comfortably. She now faces another left-hander in Jiwani, who won her first tour title in Guangzhou a couple of weeks ago, and then she had an early exit in Ningbo. I mean, that was the ultimate auto fade after a big tournament win, her first WTA tour title. And obviously, Wang's on home soil again. I'm all over Wang to win at plus 143. I think, as I say, I think Kvitova's almost checked out for the season, and Wang at plus 143 is a bet.
Yeah, Wang, I agree again. Plus 140. She's plus 143. She was plus 137. The money actually has come for Kvitova, which does surprise me. The other thing I'm going to question before we come on to the next match here, Rory. The other thing, something I always do in these tournaments when we look at these events and we look at them and think to ourselves, we're looking for motivation in players. There's places up to grabs in the WTA Tour Championships, which at the end of next month in October over in Cancun, we joked about that at the beginning. But you've got 8 players who are pretty much, I'd say 6 of them are pretty much guaranteed. Onjabeur needs to have a good week to be able to get in that position. Vondrousova needs to have a good wing to get in that position. To get in that final 8. So I'm looking at those on the outright markets as well. I think Onjabeur, I think you can definitely think to yourself that she's definitely going to be motivated for this week because of how disappointing, how close she's come to winning a major. So I think she'll want to end it high. I think the WTA would love to have her at the World Tour Championship, such a popular player. We know Sabalenka will be there. We know Swiatek will be there. I know Goff will be there. Pegula will be there. Rybakina will be there. Zachary will be there. But Onjabeur needs a good week. Vondrousova needs a good week. And players just behind her. Krejcikova needs a good week, as you said. Kasatkina needs a decent week here, and so does Caroline Garcia. So I think that's an important factor if you're looking at motivation for players. The players who've already more or less booked their place in the Tour Championships may just rest up until that because there's big money there. And the players who are just on the fringes, on the cusp of it, want to get extra points to be able to force their way into contention. So just another thing to look at. One person who's definitely going to be in Cancun, and she's the number 1 in the world now. She starts the tournament for the first time as the world number 1. So again, the pressure is on, is Aryna Sabalenka. And she's got a very difficult match against Sophie Kenin, who's in great form. Sabalenka is minus 455. The resurgence of Kenin has seen her plus 335 for this match. The spread again is quite high. 4.5, but Sabalenka is a heavy favourite, minus 143. Kenin is plus 112. And the total here is 22.5. They've met 3 times before. Sabalenka leads 2-1, but the last time they met was in Rome this year on clay, and Kenin won 7-6, 6-2. So another difficult match here against Kenin, who's been doing some really impressive stuff. She got to the final of San Diego, where she got beat by Krejcikova. Guadalajara, she reached the semi-finals. So she's doing all right.
She is. I mean, I was a bit concerned in Guadalajara because I fancy Leylah Fernandez for that, and Kenin knocked her out. She had some strapping on her thigh, and she was beaten in the semi-finals, stunned in the semi-finals by Caroline Dolehide. That was probably one of the shocks of the season, her reaching a final in Guadalajara. Yeah, she's definitely found her form of late. Sabalenka hasn't played since losing the US Open final to Goff. For me, this isn't a match to get involved with, maybe in play. I mean, these quicker conditions should be to Sabalenka's liking. I mean, obviously, Kenin beat her in Rome on clay, slow conditions. But Kenin is playing well. And when she did beat, I watched a lot of that match against Fernandez. She did serve very well in that match. So Sabalenka might be a bit rusty, having not played for a month. Kenin in form, tricky. The handicap could make some appeal. Kenin plus 4.5 games. I think it's a plus 112. That could make some appeal, but I'm gonna steer clear of this one.
No bet for Rori there, but Sabalenka does start her new life as world number 1. How long can she stay there with the presence of Iga Swiatek? I think they're going to be chopping and changing in the 2024. Who's going to go number 1 between those two? And it's up to Iga Swiatek. We talk about that, the number 2 seed now, who was the former one, the world number 1. Still, I believe, the best player in the world. Iga Swiatek, she's a very, very heavy favourite against Sara Sorbes Tormo. She's minus 1250 against the Spaniard, who is $8. They've met once before, and it was a 6-2, 6-love win for Swiatek at Wimbledon this year. So I would expect Rory to be heading towards one of his most favourite bets of the year to go for Swiatek to win 6-love. But you did say that the conditions you were a little bit too fast for you to have much confidence in her on the outright markets. I don't know if you can have much confidence on her on the match, but let's get you some props. They're going to be a lot more interesting than those money lines. 6.5 is the prop here. Sorobis Tormo receives 6.5, she's plus 105. Świątek giving up 6.5 is minus 134, and the total here is 17.5 with under minus 103 and over minus 125.
Yeah, I'm going to go for that 6 love bet again. I am, because even though Świątek isn't as good on fast surfaces, Sorobis Tormo is not good on fast surface. She's a pusher. I mean, she's an old school pusher, pretty much. And the Spaniard hasn't played since the US Open, which makes me think there might be a bit of a fitness issue. I mean, Świątek, she's not playing that badly. We know she's not as effective on these quicker surfaces, but she is less affected than Sorobis, who, as I say, she's a bit of a pusher. So, you know, the Spaniard won't get the chance to keep these rallies long. Świątek will hit winners past her. Now, when Świątek comes up against the bigger hitters and the bigger servers, she's going to struggle. Against Sorobis, she's not going to struggle. She should have far too much here. So I'm going to dust off that first set score bet. Świątek to win the first set is... Oh, haven't got the first set. I've written it down, but total games then. I think we might have to go total games. First set... Yeah, I'm going to have a little rethink here on the bet. I think she's going to win really comfortably. So
I think we can give the bet. We can give the bet. I think the line will be on the Bet Rivers website closer to time. You've got to remember these matches are the early hours of Sunday morning, so we've got a lot of time to have them. And if you do place a bet on the Bet Rivers website, remember you can live stream the match. So the suggestion from Rori here, we'll put it down as a link. We won't put it as official play. Or we'll wait for the price and then put it as official play.
Okay. If there is no 6 love, because there's a chance there might not be a 6 love bet. If there's not, we'll go the game spread. And Świątek minus 8.5 games is plus 275. That's going to be my play because, I mean, Sorobis, if she wins a couple of games, she'll have done well here. It's just, these are just not her conditions. As I say, you know, her style of play is very much suited to slower courts, and these are going to be a bit quick for her.
Yeah, and remember the order of play isn't out yet, so we'll get the order of play as the day progresses. So head to the Bet Rivers website, but all these matches we're talking about will probably be in action on the early hours of Sunday morning. Some of them may stretch into Monday, but the early hours of Sunday morning, so don't miss out. Make sure they'll be very early. So head to the Bet Rivers website, check the order of play, and make sure you get down on these bets. But the lean would be 6-0 in the opening set or 2-winner set 6 love for Iga Świątek. But we're anticipating a very, very easy win for the world number 2. Seems very strange to say world number 2 when you mention Iga Świątek.
It does.
Former Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina, who's not in the great best of form. She's up next against Qinwen Zheng, another player who's playing very, very well. She's plus 120. Qinwen Zheng, I always think the Welsh player, Qinwen Zheng. He's a real player.
Qinwen Jones.
Qinwen Jones. And Elena Rybakina is a minus 150 favorite, as we said here. She's the number 5 seed, but she's not in the best of form. She got beat. It's the first time she's played since she got beat in the 3rd round of the US Open against Castilla. But Zheng has won the Asian Games tournament, and she got through to the quarterfinals at the US Open, where she got beat by Sabalenka. So she is in great form here. She's playing in front of a very sort of excited, I would say, a very sort of excited, exuberant crowd here. So I think that she's going to raise her game. On the spread, it's 1.5 start for Zheng, minus 105. Back in at minus 1.5 is minus 122. And the total is 22.5. 28 different other markets available on the Bet Rivers website on this match. And you will not find more tennis markets with any other sportsbook across the United States of America than with Bet Rivers.
I really like Zheng here, I have to say. I mean, the head-to-head, Rybakina won their only previous meeting in 2 close sets on her way to the Wimbledon title last year. Zheng, that Asian Games title, it was in Hangzhou, also in China. I mean, it was a very, very weak tournament. Her only serious opposition was Lin Zhu in the final. And Lin's she's won a tournament this year, Lin Zhu. But Zheng won 6-2, 6-4. Rybakina pulled out. I mean, we talked about her performance by issues and not being happy about that. She did pull out of Tokyo over fitness concerns. She is one player who's played a lot of tennis this year. She's had a lot of minor sort of niggling injuries, and which have forced her out of tournaments. I think she's another one who just wants this season to be over and get some rest ahead of next season. So as you say, Qinwen Zheng, she won in Palermo late July. She's won this Asian Games title, high on confidence, home support. Zheng to win plus 120 is the bet here.
Another bet that I agree with Rori Jiwani on. So we've got some whole host of different bets there, and some outsiders, underdogs that look tremendous value with questionable motivation for the seeded players, changing conditions, and a long layoff and expectation. So I really do like a lot of these dogs tomorrow. It's been a couple of weeks of dogs in Asia, and I think that we're going to find some more outsiders winning here. So Roy, just give us a little recap of your best bets for tomorrow's action in Beijing.
Okay, starting off with Ekaterina Alexandrova against Coco Gauff. Alexandrova to win at plus 280, and 2 points on Alexandrova on the handicap plus 4.5 games. That's minus 104. Jiwani plus 143 to beat Petra Kvitova. Iga Swiatek minus 8.5 games on the handicap against Sara Sorribes Tormo. That price is plus 275. Obviously got a lean for Swiatek winning the first set 6-love. And then finally, Qinwen Zheng at plus 120 to beat Jelena Rybakina.
Some great bets there, in my opinion. I think the money will come for them. So make sure you head to the Bet Rivers website nice and early. Remember, these matches are played in the early hours of Sunday morning. So you have to get your bets on nice and early. Thanks for watching. There are 4 ways to follow us here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. The first way you can do it is by downloading this podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, which you can on your preferred podcast provider. You can also follow us on our YouTube channel, which is the Betting Weekly Studios. There's some brilliant content there on the tennis, myself and Sean Calvert on the ATP Tour events. Rory will be joining us again one final time. It's amazing to think that we're in a couple of days' time that we're into October and the season ends and it's Christmas, and then where's that year gone? It's staggering. But there's one more event to come after this week, and that is at the WTA Tour Championships in Cancun. Roy will be joining us again later on in the week to look ahead to more matches here in Beijing. And there's also some great football content, soccer content on there as well. The Premier League is hotting up. The Champions League match day 2 is in midweek, and all the action across Europe is covered on there. And also follow us on our social pages. Because We Win is our handle. And you can follow us on our Twitter page and our Instagram page, where you can get some extra content, some fun laughs along the way, some extra videos, and also some content from all the guys and tips along the way to help you profit and bet more with us. Rory, have a good week. You're over in Madrid, and we were a little rate run this morning because the washing machine needed replacing. I'm sure hopefully the weekend has got a little bit, you haven't got any more maintenance men coming around. Hopefully you got a little bit more set to do over the weekend. Got anything nice planned today? Weather's still nice.
I've got the day job, but also trying to catch a bit of the Ryder Cup. Hopefully see Europe continue their demolition of the United States.
Well, it might be over, so you'll have Sunday free, so it might be over by Sunday. Saturday it might be done. But anyway, enough of that. This is we are working for an American sports book with a high American audience. So yes. We're totally impartial in this show. But go Team Europe. Take care.